So in order to figure that out, we're going to need to determine if there's a market. And there's a couple of ways that you can do this. You can contact recyclers in your area. You can contact companies who may be able to use the material. So for instance, if you have a particular material and you think that there's another company that their business process could potentially use that, you can start making those phone calls. There's also consultants and government agencies that get involved in this, and you can use their services. And then there's also RecycleMatch, and this is certainly not a sales pitch, but you can use RecycleMatch, and that's a good way to kind of go on and see, without any upfront costs and fees, if there is any market for that particular material.
Hey, Brooke, I want to jump in here with a question that John put through the system. He's asking, how much information do I need to gather to begin the process?
Okay, great. Good question. Was that John or Don?
John.
John. Okay, sorry, didn't hear you. All right, John. Well, basically, how much information? Yeah, the answer to that really is the more information you have, the better. And it's going to be relatively dependent on the material that you're talking about as to what the information might be. Obviously, construction materials versus various manufacturing byproducts may be a little bit different. But the idea is that the more information you have, the better. It provides confidence to the buyers that you know what you have and that they know what you're going to be providing them. And they can make a more effective estimate on how much it's going to cost them to manage those materials. So detailed specs on those materials, if you purchase them, so for instance, if you've been purchasing that material as a raw material coming into your process or into your building, if you've got receipts for those materials, if you've got spec sheets for those materials, those are the kind of things that would absolutely be helpful on the other end of it. And then if you don't have details on the materials themselves, or it's not as clear what the materials are made of, we can actually run tests to define those specifications. Some of the basic information that's real simple is quantity or volume, really appropriately addressing how much material you have. Is it coming out as a byproduct every month? Is it something that's going to be a one-time event? Those are the kind of questions that would be very helpful. Even details about how it's packaged and how it would need to be transported. If you understand, it's already baled, or it's a loose material, or it's mixed in with other materials, all of those kind of things help the potential buyer understand what it is you've got and the condition it's in. Okay, so moving on, we will talk about managing it like a product. And John, that's a good question, and it kind of leads right into this. One of the things that you can do in order to maximize the value of the material is sort it out. Because the recycler or the end user of the material may not have the ability to sort out the material, it may be a requirement that you sort those materials. Or it may just be something that makes it much more cost effective so that you actually potentially could earn some money from your recyclables versus paying to have somebody do that additional sorting work for you. And another way to look at that is also demanufacturing. A lot of times we talk about disassembly versus demolition in the construction world. And that's really because some of those materials, when they're demolished, they're all dumped together in one big dumpster. But there are times when there are certain materials that can be pulled out of the waste stream that have particular value. So certainly when there's a high value material, it's very important to disassemble, pull those more important, more valuable component parts out of the system. Another example on that front, actually talked to some folks with a medical equipment assembly process, and in their manufacturing process, they actually had leftover component parts. So as they were assembling some kits to go into hospitals, there were certain parts that were constantly left over, and those parts would be thrown away. And they were all mingled in together and just dumped every month. And if you almost imagine that they could have very easily put one piece into one trash can and another piece into another trash can and essentially separated the two as they were doing the assembly without any additional work, they could have potentially increased the value of those particular byproducts. Okay. Another thing very similar is prepping it. So particularly, this is a photo of some organic waste that we had, and you really could increase the value by separating out the plastic. In this particular case, it was a matter of reducing the water content that created additional value. Those kinds of preparations can help with logistics costs, and they can make your product more valuable. Similarly, these are baled materials here. You can package it, and so it's kind of that lost opportunity to reduce your logistics cost if you don't take upon the extra step of doing some of these things. Another example here related to packaging the material, we actually had an example with a customer who had indicated that the materials that they had would need to be crated. So when the person who was coming to pick up those materials got there, they realized the materials had actually already been crated. So they didn't have to spend the money to do that crating. The company who had those materials probably could have gotten a better deal, better offer from the other party had they accurately explained that the materials were already crated. So that was one particular example of where packaging it and then explaining what the condition of the materials really adds value in determining the market. Also along the lines of managing the product is protecting that value. You know, it's interesting. You've got a variety of companies out there that just have always treated the materials like it's trash and it goes in the dumpster. But the training of explaining to your employees not to put the trash in the dumpster can be a little bit tricky. If you've been walking past the same dumpster for months and months, years and years even, you know, you just assume that your cheeseburger goes in there with everything else. Really making sure that you separate out those materials and that you articulate to people on your team what goes in here versus what goes in there. And you may have to train them in language that is relevant to your business. So, you know, people may not necessarily realize which plastics are allowed here, and they may throw every type of plastic in one bin. So if there's very specific things in your business, you may be able to say, all right, well, the waste from this particular manufacturing line goes into this dumpster, or from this particular material goes into this dumpster. So in summary, what we're saying is don't waste your company's resources. There's a lot of value in some of those materials that people have not discovered yet. And it is possible to shift the thinking at your company. It may take a little bit of work to manage your company's waste cycle product, but we believe it's definitely worthwhile to a lot of the companies that we work with, and certainly worthwhile for the environment, and helps companies reduce their costs and sometimes even make money on the other end. So with that, open it up to questions if we have any, or comments. Okay. Got a shy group today. All right, I don't see any questions popping up so far. Oh, I think we might have a few coming in. All right, well, it looks like we've got some comments, but no direct questions. All right, well, everybody, thank you so much for your time today. If you do have any questions or follow-up comments, please feel free to contact me directly. My email is on the screen there, brooke.farrell@recyclematch.com, and you're welcome to connect with us via Twitter or give me a call, and we can go into more detail based on your particular industry. All right, thanks everybody for your time today.